Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Corn Productions with my co-host Stacie, here to talk about Sullivan's Crossings. Episode 1, Season 1, Episode 1, Coming Home. The series description reads as follows. Neurosurgeon Maggie Sullivan reconnects with her small-town past after a scandal causes her to leave her professional and personal life behind in the city. The episode's description reads as follows. Successful neurosurgeon Maggie Sullivan is struggling after getting arrested. Even after the charges are dropped, she runs back to her hometown in Nova Scotia to stay with her estranged father, Sully. Cal Jones is Sully's hot assistant. The episode was written by series creator Roma Roth, Carrie McDonald, and based on the book by Robin Carr. The episode was directed by Bradley Walsh, who directed 2 episodes of this series thus far, and seems to have a career directing Christmas movies.
Yes, I noticed a lot of Christmas movies on all of our cast credits.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. I'm wondering if they all worked on the same movies. I didn't actually look into that, but
yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if, the local Nova Scotia film scene is similar to our film scene here in Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of Christmas movies filmed here. And I'm wondering if it's kind of similar there. They just film a lot of Christmas movies.
Maybe I should ask Carla. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple of things. One, this is not a spoiler-free podcast. If you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you go and check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're on one of the platforms that this podcast is now available on, please subscribe. You can also head over to my YouTube channel, Corn Productions, where additional content can be discovered. If you already are on my YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, as well as subscribing to my channel. Okay, so this is the first time taking a look at this series.
Yeah, we've mentioned it, like, in Peripheral a few times. So, yeah, let's just talk for a minute about why are we looking at this show, right?
Absolutely. That's,
So, the first time the name Sullivan's Crossing ever appeared to me was a social media post by Reid Price, who in this series appears as Rob Shandon. We know Reid from the TV series From.
Right.
So if you're listening to us, I'm imagining you're either someone who listens to us all the time and you have no idea what we're talking about, or maybe you're checking the show out as well with us, or maybe you are searching for stuff about Sullivan's Crossing, in which case you've never listened to us before, right? So if that's the case, welcome.
Yes. Welcome to the channel.
Thanks for being here. Typically we cover, this isn't necessarily all that similar to the other stuff we cover, right?
It's not necessarily in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, so From is a TV series on MGM+. And it's more like a sci-fi, horror, mystery box show. But the link is we do have some crossover actors, probably some crossover production talent as well, because it is filmed literally right down the street from Sullivan's Crossing. Fromville and Sullivan's Crossing are right next to each other on the map in real life.
Well, I think I know where I would rather be. I think I would rather be in Sullivan's Crossing.
Yeah, that lake looked really nice.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I was looking at it like, yeah, the Fromville people need to find that lake. It's not that far. Go find it. Go hang out there. It looks much better.
Yeah. So the main reason we decided to cover this series is because of Reid Price.
Yeah.
And also Bob Mann's involvement.
Right. Bob Mann playing Bob Hollis on this series, and he played Frank Pratt on From in the first 3 episodes. So yeah, it came into my head because Reid had talked about it on his social media, and I was like, what show is that? And this was a while ago, right? Because this series already aired season 1 in its entirety in Canada, which ran kind of concurrent with From season 2, but is just now airing here where we are in the U.S. So only the first episode has aired for us on the CW. But our Canadian listeners have already had a chance to see the whole series if they have chosen to do so. So you know more than us. All we have had access to so far is episode 1, which is what we're going to be talking about today. And my first, like like I said, he mentioned the show. I looked it up and said, what is that? And I read the description. Again, we didn't have access to view it yet, so it was just reading about it. And my first thing was like, that sounds an awful lot like Virgin River.
Yes, you did mention that in our interview.
Yeah, I know. I told this story already when we were chatting with Reid. And it makes sense because I then later realized both Virgin River and Sullivan's Crossing are based on books by Robin Carr.
Oh, okay.
So they are going to be thematically similar. And one thing I'm wondering is there any actual crossover between these?
So you think they might be like in the same universe?
Right. I'm wondering. Like, I don't know the answer to that.
No, I don't. Either. I don't know much about Robin Carr.
I haven't actually watched Virgin River. I've seen bits of it because when my sister was living with me, she was watching it. So I saw it like on the screen, and I've seen bits and pieces.
But you weren't actually actively watching it. I wasn't
actively watching it, right? So I know some plot points, I know some of the characters, but I don't know the continuity of the story.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was looking up the actors in this show, a couple times I was like, oh, they were also in Virgin River, and then I'm like, oh wait, they're playing a different character.
Right.
So I haven't seen any, but I'd love to know that. If anybody knows, like, should we expect any sort of actual crossover, whether it's a crossover character or a reference to a character, anything to indicate that these shows are actually linked other than just being from the same author?
Well, while Stacie has some knowledge of this series and the connections, I am a complete noob to this particular universe. I know nothing about it at all, other than having watched this first episode and reading some of the episode's descriptions, and also listening to Reid Price talk. I guess now is a good time to basically show you a clip of the interview that we did with Reid Price, talking about Sullivan's Crossings. So here's that interview.
So tell us a little bit about Rob the bartender and about Sullivan's Crossing, because we haven't seen it yet.
Oh, cool. I'd love to. I play another bartender, Rob Shandon. He's also a cook, and he runs the diner in Sullivan's Crossing. And similar to From, the diner he runs, called Shandon's Diner, is kind of central, one of the central points in the show, one of a few. And so people are often in there. The story's progressing in there often when people are having dialogues, conversations. But that's their meetup spot. That's where they get their lunch. And he's a lovable guy. He has a 10-year-old son. And his plot points revolve around his son and also his sister, who is home to help out with the raising of his son and helping run the diner, because poor Rob's wife passed away. So he's a widower. And he is trying to keep it all together, and he's got a rambunctious son who he's finding is getting into a little bit of trouble, more than he should. And Rob needs a lady. Oh my gosh. So he's getting along with that. And you know, the show is all about heart and family and getting over tough things. And Shandon's Diner is where everybody meets, and it's so cool to play another character where your kind of location is pretty strong point of the show. And Sullivan's Crossing is great. My girlfriend calls it her new favorite show.
All right. Well, that was, of course, interesting. If you'd like to see the full interview, we'll include the link to that in the episode's description.
Yeah, where we covered not just this show, but From and other things that he's been in as well.
A couple of shout outs I actually have. One for my co-host Stacie. She just had a birthday.
Thank you.
Yesterday. And you know what's really interesting about your birthday is the fact that it happens to coincide with Thanksgiving in Canada.
Canadian Thanksgiving was yesterday as well.
Which is something I would not know without Carla Sutherland.
Well, I know that because I've been seeing a lot of Canadian posts following all of these actors from and all of, these. We're suddenly very tied into the Canadian film industry.
I guess
which
so.
I never was before. But yeah, it was Canadian Thanksgiving, which lined up with here in the U.S. we were celebrating Columbus Day and Indigenous Peoples Day. My birthday doesn't always fall on that, but when it's on a Monday, it does.
Oh, okay.
And I guess Columbus Day and Canadian Thanksgiving are always aligned because they both take place the second Monday of the month.
Yeah, see, I'm completely clueless about all of this, so that's why I have her here.
And also, it's the birthday of Scott Bakula.
Yes, of course.
But we should bring that up on Thursday when we talk about Quantum Leap.
We absolutely will.
If anybody here likes Quantum Leap, that is a show we cover, so make sure you come back for that.
All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode.
Okay, so I liked it. I am interested in continuing to watch this series. Again, it's very different from the stuff we usually cover. And I mentioned this to you earlier. If you have any of the This Is Us fandom still hanging around, because you used to cover that show, I think there might be some crossover there. People who are interested in dramas. I think this is like a rom-drom. Is that a thing?
I guess.
Instead of a rom-com, it's a rom-drom.
You know what it is? It's a CW show.
It's a CW. Well, it's not a CW show. CW did pick it up, and they're who's showing it to us.
You know, it's funny because it feels like a CW show.
Yeah, it fits that they picked this up from U.S. airing, right? And you know, I love like teen dramas, and this is kind of like that, except they're grown-ups. So
right.
It's like a grown-up teen drama.
Yeah.
Which probably sounds a little backwards to say.
Well, it's interesting because two of the actors on this show that this show basically markets, that the fact that Scott Patterson and Chad Michael Murray have returned to the CW with this series. They were both on teen dramas, essentially. There was Gilmore Girls. I don't think either one of them were like super involved with that show. A little bit. I think they were like...
Yeah, Scott Patterson had a pretty big role.
Scott Patterson had a big role?
Yeah.
Chad Michael Murray, not so much. He was more a regular on One Tree Hill, which ran for 187 episodes back in the day. And nowhere was in the marketing did it mention the fact that Reid Price would be returning to the CW. I guess that wasn't, a big deal to them. And if you're watching this episode for Reid Price, which I guess most people probably aren't. They're not...
Well, if you're here as our fans...
Yeah.
You might be doing the same thing we are, checking this out because of Reid Price. And
you're going to be waiting quite a long time into this episode to actually see him.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of Rob in this episode, but he is credited in all 10 season 1 episodes.
So, yes, hopefully we will get to see him more.
I get the impression we'll get to see more of Rob and his sister Sydney as we go on.
And, overall, I thought this episode was decent. I'm not totally sure how I feel about the series yet. It's really hard to judge a series by its pilot episode.
Right. You know,
it's usually the weakest episode.
One thing in this episode, and I have an entire page just of character names and actors and who these people are, and there's a lot of people we're introduced to really fast. And I feel like maybe they something that a lot of shows do, they just want to introduce you to everybody and tell you all of their stories, like, up front. And in that, you don't have any progression, right? Because it's all just, like, introductions.
I also kind of felt at arm's length from the main character. Like, at the end of the episode, I don't really feel like I know who she is.
Yeah. And
what she's actually going through, because mainly we're kept in the dark about some key aspects of what's going on.
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be a slow reveal, giving us all of those details. So there's 3 top billed cast members. You mentioned 2 of them already. The top person being Morgan Cohan, who plays Maggie Sullivan. I'm not familiar with this actress.
Yeah, she has 27 acting credits, and the only thing that I recognize on her filmography is an appearance on Star Trek Discovery as a weapons dealer.
Okay.
I don't remember her from that series.
She is a regular on, or was a regular on When Hope Calls. I did not see that series either. And again, they all have lots of Christmas movies.
Right.
You mentioned Scott Patterson, who plays her father, Harry Sullivan.
Yeah. He's actually, I think, in my mind, the best performer on this show, I think. He seems the most naturalistic of the actors in this series.
So you mentioned he was a regular on Gilmore Girls. One thing that stood out to me,
the Saw franchise.
He is in the Saw franchise in at least three of them.
Movies. Yeah. It was like
he played
4, 5, and 6.
Agent Strom. Now the fun thing about this is my husband and I are actually in the middle of a Saw watch.
Oh, okay.
Just this week we watched movies 5, 6, 7, and 8.
Well, I'm glad you're just watching the movies and not participating.
Well, actually, it's his first time. He's never watched. He doesn't do horror.
Because I'd hate to have to.
Adam doesn't do horror. Yeah. But we're watching them, and he's going along with it because it's my birthday week, and we've got Friday the 13th this week, and it's Halloween month. So he's like, "Yeah, okay, we can watch horror movies." So yeah, having freshly just seen those movies with Agent Strom in them, it's like, oh yeah, there he is. He's like kind of a big deal in the Saw franchise. A recurring character. And of course, the third leading cast member is Chad Michael Murray playing Cal Jones. In the episode description, basically his whole point is that he's supposed to be hot.
I mean, Chad Michael Murray was a good-looking guy in his day, and he's okay.
I just find it funny that's what they have to say about his character.
Right. And that's right in the episode's description.
The series description, was it?
Yeah. No, it was the episode's
the
description.
Episode. Okay, either way, we are told by all the promotional materials that we're supposed to be shipping Maggie and Cal.
Right.
They get off to a very rocky start.
And I have things to say about that. But,
okay. He like you said, he was in One Tree Hill. He also had appearances in Agent Carter. He's got a really big filmography.
Mm-hmm.
He's been on our screens for a couple decades now.
He's our age. He was born in 1981.
Right. He was like doing teen stuff when we were teens.
Yep. And now he's doing old man stuff. And now that we're old people.
That was a really sad way to put it.
Yes,
None of us are that old.
Okay, I mean,
and he still looks 20 years younger than us.
So some of my coworkers tell me that I'm not old, even though I repeatedly insist that I am. But and then some of them are not as nice to me. But yes.
All right, so we will introduce more actors and characters as we meet them in the show. You ready to just dive into the episode? So what we do here, again, if you're brand new here, is we pretty much do a scene-by-scene analysis, which is what we're going to do, talk about the episode as it played out and interject our thoughts and, like I said, discussion about the actors and all that good stuff.
All right, we open with the doctor, Maggie Sullivan, played by Morgan Cohan. She played, I don't need to say that because I already did.
Already.
Yep.
Sorry.
She's in the middle of a medical emergency. It's a car crash. One guy has a broken leg. The other guy is in far more serious shape. He ends up getting carted off because an aneurysm or something, or...
well, no, I don't think we knew exactly. They might have mentioned it, but, medical drama.
Right, medical jargon, medical drama stuff.
So, it kind of leads you to feel like this is a medical show.
Yeah,
it's not.
I was, confused. What am I watching here? And then...
So Maggie doesn't work at the hospital. She works at a private practice. She was in the hospital for a consult, and they pulled her into the ER because... they didn't have another doctor to handle them. They don't have a staff doctor in the ER? Okay.
I guess not. Maybe she called out sick or something. I don't know.
So, she was on her way out the door, and they pulled her in, and it looked like she got stuck there a lot longer than she was supposed to be dealing with this. It was the passenger, Jamal Patterson. He's the one that was in really rough shape because he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. So, folks, wear your seatbelt.
Yes.
And the driver was Kevin Markiff. And he's the one, like you said, he just had a few broken bones. She wasn't concerned about him. And that's important. That's going to be important to our story later. And one thing to note is as she is rushing off to the OR to treat Jamal is the mother of Kevin Markiff approaches her. And she tells the mom, don't worry, your son's going to be just fine.
Right.
And as soon as that was said, I knew that was going to be a problem. You don't say that. You haven't even evaluated her son.
Right. So she basically has her escorted back to the waiting room. And
we'll just keep that in mind for later.
Yep. And after a tough day, Maggie sits on a bench outside of the hospital, and it's late at night at this point, and is soon joined by her fiance, I'm assuming. I don't think is it ever even said what he is?
Just boyfriend, I think.
Boyfriend? This is Andrew, played by Alan Hocko. He has 40 acting credits, a few writing and producing credits as well.
Yeah, he was in Moonshine, which is a Canadian show that Reid Price appeared in.
Oh, okay.
Although I don't think they had episodes in common. I think Reid was just in 1 or 2 episodes of that. And he was in season 1 of The Departure, which was a show that I loved.
Okay.
I tend to just pick up things that I recognize, that mean something to me when I'm pulling things out of these people's IMDb's. But everyone here has a lot of great credits. Lots of stuff going on for all of them.
He's here because her mother called, and paranoid that she would not make the award ceremony. He rented a limo and brought her outfit.
Yeah, and we also learned that he actually lives 2 hours away, so they're in a long-distance relationship, and Maggie didn't even know he was coming for the award ceremony. Right. So, he surprised her. She doesn't like surprises.
Right.
I don't blame her.
At the award ceremony, we meet her mother, and Bob Hollis, played by Bob Mann. Maggie is called to accept her award, and she starts giving a speech when the FBI bursts in and arrests Bob and herself, and we are not told why.
Yeah. Okay, so let's break down some of the stuff that happened, because you went really fast past all
Right.
that.
Yes, I did. I gave that a short shift for sure.
Okay, so we learned during this, and because I think some of this stuff will become important as we go through the series, I just want to point some of it out. The boyfriend, Andrew, we learned he was offered a position in Boston, so they would no longer be living 2 hours apart. She was very reluctant about all of this.
Yes.
He wants to move in together, and she already has one foot out the door. So right away, we're given kind of the idea that their relationship is going nowhere fast, which obviously they don't want us to root for them if they're pushing for Maggie and Cal to be shipped, right?
Of course.
And you said we met the mother. The mother's name is Phoebe, and I just want to grab the actress's name. Phoebe Lancaster is the character played by Linda Boyd, and she's one of the ones that's in Virgin River, but playing a different character, and I don't know anything about that. And then we also meet her stepfather, Walter Lancaster, and he's actually the one giving her the award. And so we're already seeing she has a close relationship with her stepfather, which comes into play later when we see what a kind of broken relationship she has with her biological father. So she was raised by her stepfather. She became a neurosurgeon because of him. He was a famous neurosurgeon. He paid for her college, we'll learn later. And Walter's played by Peter Outeridge, and he is also in the Saw franchise. He was the main victim in Saw 6. Mr. Easton, who was like the head of the insurance company that had wronged Jigsaw. And he was the one being tested all throughout the movie Saw 6. So I thought that was interesting to note. Again, having just watched it, like literally the day before I watched this, I had watched that movie. He also has appearances in The Expanse, 12 Monkeys, which is another time travel show that I watched. And he was in the pilot episode of Fringe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I've actually been thinking about doing a rewatch of that series.
I tried to do a Fringe rewatch once. I didn't get very far. I was having a hard time getting back into it. But, yeah, I think it fits with... Like you've been doing X-Files rewatch.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I wasn't talking about doing videos or podcasts or anything, just watching
just revisiting it.
Yep.
But here's what happens. Every time you revisit something, you're like, let's podcast about it.
Right. Yeah, basically. That is what happens.
That is what happens.
Even though I'm like, I got about 1,000 of these things going on. So, yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a good idea to add more to my plate.
So the award that she was accepting was the Rising Neurosurgeon Award. She's just doing great in this field. And we also saw some discussion with some people that work at the hospital. They're trying to recruit her full-time. Like, she's in very high demand. Everybody wants her. She's the best as far as new neurosurgeons go. And Bob Hollis, that you mentioned, who she works directly with at his practice, is like, I'm not going to let you go. And of course, that's Bob Mann, our other From Lee member.
It's fun watching him here, like in his brief scene. Comparing him to Frank in Prom. It is really fun seeing that.
Yeah, and I know we're going to get more of Bob Hollis's character later in this season.
Yeah,
and
he's credited with 4 episodes, whereas Reid Price is credited with all 10.
Right, so he's not a series regular, but we are going to get to re-see him. Unlike in From, he's not going to disappear.
He's probably not going to get eaten by monsters.
Probably not going to get eaten by monsters, spoiler alert.
That would be quite a turn, though, if you were.
And yeah, like you said, Bob's arrested, Maggie's arrested. We don't really know why. Obviously, it has something to do with their medical practice. But we don't know. Is it like, are there financial things happening? Like, is it insurance fraud? Or is it more like malpractice stuff going on?
If that were the case, I mean, it's clearly not something like murder or anything like that. Is it really necessary to interrupt this ceremony to arrest them like that?
Right.
Like, is this how this is done?
It's very dramatic that this is done at a public, like, while she's in the middle of accepting her award. And I thought that was really funny. And you know what was going through my mind watching this scene is just a couple of weeks ago, I saw Reid Price post a video of him accepting an award for a movie that he was in.
Was he arrested afterwards?
No, but I'm thinking watching this, like, Reid, like, and I should ask him this, like, when you... We're accepting your award, giving your speech. Were you thinking about this scene? Because I feel like you had to have been.
What was the award he accepted?
He accepted an award for the movie Dawn, Her Dad, and a tractor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
This is acting award?
Yes, this is from the Actra Maritime Award for outstanding performance.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, and he had posted a clip of it on Instagram just a couple weeks ago.
Okay, I'll definitely have to check out that movie.
Yeah, we should put it on our list. I don't know if we have access to it, but there's a few, and I have them, in my notes later when we talk about our Nova Scotian talent people, but
right,
because there's more of them that we see. I found myself, I told you this before we were on the air, like I find myself looking more at the background actors now, the bit parts, because that's where we've put our focus from and learning all of these actors that appear in all of these Nova Scotian productions.
Right. So after the credits, or during the credits, we aren't really told what happened in the previous scene. We just see Maggie driving
we're
in.
sometime in the near future, right? We've overcome whatever that was, and we'll hear a little bit more about it later in the episode, but she is driving. We've got this, music, this very,
It's nice.
I like the soundtrack of this episode. It does remind me of From in that respect, where it's got, poignant music, but this particular, I didn't look it up. Is this song from a musical?
I'm not really sure.
I got musical vibes, and I wasn't sure where this song came from.
Yeah, so we're driving towards Sullivan's Crossing. It's a beautiful imagery.
We're seeing lots of woods.
This is she's driving in Nova Scotia in Canada. The show itself is actually filmed in Halifax, Canada. They mentioned that the spot that they were filming in is a hidden gem. The production team mentioned that. I don't remember where, but. Yeah, so they were talking about the scenery and how amazing
so watching this, I'm again remembering that this is filmed right down the street from where From is filmed, and I'm looking at these driving scenes in the woods, and I'm like, is that the same spot? I'm trying to notice. Oh,
that would be your laundry being finished.
I sure hope the last 24 minutes you couldn't hear the dryer going ba-boom, 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 because I totally forgot it was on.
Oh,
if that's the case, I apologize, and it's done now.
All right, so the camping resort, by the way, that she ends up driving to looks completely gorgeous. The show does a very good job of making this seem like a place that I want to go to.
Yeah,
I want to vacation.
Before she gets to the campground, she passes a sign saying they're entering Timber Lake. So that's the name of the town. And we pass by Shandon's Diner, which Reid Price told us all about, that we're going to get to see some of that. But in this episode, we only saw the facade of it.
We quickly meet Frank and Edna. Frank is played by Tom Jackson. He has 44 acting credits. The only thing I recognize him from is an appearance on Star Trek Next Generation, a season 7 episode, Journey's End. He played a Native American that was spent the majority of the time talking to Wesley Crusher. Yeah. And that was the episode that Wesley departed the series and became a traveler.
Right. The episode that leads us to a whole thing, right?
Right, yep. And, and then Edna is played by Andrea Menard. She has 33 appearances for her. The only thing I recognized her from having appeared in, and I didn't even actually watch the show, but I just know about it, is Supernatural.
Okay.
Did you recognize her from anything else?
No, I actually didn't write down anything for those actors. Nothing must have jumped out to me.
They are both happy to see her. It's clearly been a long time since either one of them have seen her or heard from her.
And they run the store and kitchen at the campground.
And she asks about Sully, which is a really, given the fact that this is her father.
Yeah, we haven't even learned yet, what her relationship is to these people.
Right.
So Sully's her dad, and every hint we get is a very strange relationship. Do they even keep in touch?
Right.
We don't know.
Well, I mean, it's not a good sign that she refers to him as Sully.
Right.
And this is the Scott Patterson
and
character. And
again, remember, she was raised by her stepfather. That's her dad in her mind.
We already mentioned that he's been in 3 Saw movies. This is where that's in my notes. She runs the place. He tries to set her up with a room, but she wants to take her old one, which I guess is in his house or something.
It's in his house, which is on the campground, but at the end of it, because they drive there, which I thought was kind of weird. She gets in his truck and they drive to his house. And why are you not bringing your car?
Right.
You're leaving your car parked at the store, but then drive. Why don't you leave your car at the house?
Right.
If that's where you're going to be staying. But okay.
After they go to the house, they go inside. She seems to be horrified by his bachelor life, which she sees like a dirty
Yeah,
dish.
the kitchen's very unkempt, and she's like, "Oh, like you're not doing so great
Right.
on your own, are you? Maybe you need some love."
That's nice.
I'm going to back up just a second because one thing you skipped by, and I just want to mention really quickly. I have a couple more actors' names I want to throw in there. We met a family when we were at the store.
Yes.
Okay, and this is the Smith family, and I want to bring them up mostly because I want to talk about the son Remy.
Okay.
Because that actor has some interesting credits for a young child.
Okay.
The actor is Oliver Boyle, and he's appeared many times with Reid Price and Bob Mann.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And other, Nova Scotian Frumley actors. And this is what I said, I was really looking at like the local actors because I'm starting to recognize their pictures and the pictures of the different productions they've been in. And I'm like, oh, wait, I know that.
This has been very educational.
Yeah. So he is in King and Pawn.
Okay.
Which is a show that it's like a short format Canadian show.
I think we talked about that, didn't we?
Reid was starring in, and Bob Mann appeared in as well. So he was in that. He was in a movie with Reid Price and Reid's girlfriend Morgan Melnick called Bone Cage.
Bone Cage.
Yeah, and
is that like a horror movie?
It sounds like it should be, but it was about, I just read the description, but I do want to find these things if they're available for us to watch. It involves like forestry and saving the animals that are displaced when the trees are cut down.
Oh,
it sounded like a drama. It was a drama movie.
So kind of an environmental.
But yeah, Reid Price and Morgan and a couple other people, I believe, from were in that one. And I didn't write down who was in which thing, but one of these things, I think it might have been that one, had, and I can't think of the actor's name off the top of my head. I should have just wrote it all down. He was the one that played Eric, the guy that hung himself.
Oh, okay.
He was in one of these movies. I think that one.
Yep.
And then this boy, Oliver Boyle, was also in the movie that Ted just mentioned that Reid won an award for, which was Dawn, Her Dad, and a Tractor.
Okay.
Which also is something, I really want to find that one. I don't know if it's available for us to watch, but I want to look and see. That sounded like an interesting movie. It's about a transgender woman who is coming back to see her family for the first time after her transition.
Well, that's definitely a drama worth checking out.
Yeah, it looked interesting and award-winning, so. But yeah, so the young Oliver Boyle has been involved in a lot of things that, other actors we're familiar with has been in for, a very young actor. So the character he's playing is, his name is Remy, and he's the son of the Smith family, and the Smith family is spending their summer at this camp. It looks from the credit, like from the IMDb's, we're going to see this family a few times, so I think they're going to, have some story plot. Remy does not want to be there.
Right.
And one of the things that happened is Sully gave the mom a bottle of aspirin. It was like, here, because it looks like you're going to need this. Here's a free bottle of aspirin. And the rest of the family members, the daughter's name is Chelsea. She's played by Parita Brown. This is her only credit so far, so she's breaking into the local Nova Scotian acting scene with this role. So good luck to her, and she might pop up in From someday.
Yeah, I look forward to talking to her in 10 years when she has like 120 credits.
Yeah, and the parents aren't actually named characters, so I think we're gonna get mostly stuff with the kids happening. But Mrs. Smith, the mom, is played by Francine Deschelhepper. She's also in Dawn, Her Dad, and the Tractor.
Okay, so there's a lot of crossover there.
And she's been in a bunch of other things as well. And then the father, the actor's name is Ben Stone, which stood out to me because, well, that's the name of the lead character in Manifest.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
That's where that name rings a bell in my head. But that's the actor's name, Ben Stone, and he's actually in an episode of The Sinner season 4.
Interesting.
Which Reid Price was in, but it wasn't one of Reid's episodes. He was in a different episode, and of course other things as well. So I just wanted to mention that family because I do think they'll come back up throughout the season.
They were in it so quick that I basically just disregarded them, basically. All right.
Yeah, so she okay, so we're in the kitchen, it's messy, she's kind of like, oh, I don't know about this.
It wasn't that bad.
It was.
Okay, maybe
so this is the perspective of you.
Right.
Who lives alone as a bachelor, probably lives just like this dude is. I don't.
Maybe worse.
Yes. But yeah, coming from the woman looking at this, like, oh, my father's not handling himself too great.
Yeah, and this will not be the last time I will seek a woman's perspective on things, particularly in relation to Maggie and Cal, but we'll get there.
So she goes upstairs and we see her childhood room where she's decided to stay. And there's this painting of a tree on the wall. And suddenly we get a flashback of Maggie as a child. I did not write down that actress's name. I apologize for that.
But that is Scott Patterson playing the father again.
Yes. So she's there with her dad.
Does he look like that, or does he look like he does in the rest of the series? Because he looks really young in that flashback. They just like dye his hair or something.
I'm not sure.
He doesn't look as old.
They did a good job.
Yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah, basically.
So it's this painting of a tree, and in the flashback, he's telling her, "Yeah, you can paint whatever you want on the wall." And we get a conversation about her moving on with her life, you know, and she starts crying. It's like, "I never want to leave, Daddy. I want to stay here with you in Sullivan's Crossing."
Right.
And
that was kind of a weird thing for a kid to say.
It was
Specifically say
weird. Yeah.
Sullivan's Crossing like that. Like, why? I want to stay home. But yeah, anyway.
I feel like, and we didn't really get it, like they didn't really explain to us any of this, but the impression I took is perhaps this is right around the time that the parents were going through a divorce.
Okay.
And maybe she knew she was leaving to live with her mom.
Gotcha.
And was only going to be here like in the summers or whatever. And I feel like that was maybe the transitional time in her life.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, this reverie, this memory is interrupted by Sully bringing up her bags. He's like, "What? You practice a lot. What do you have in here?"
Yeah.
And she's like, she doesn't know how long she's going to be here.
Right. So that tells us, at least when she was packing, she had the thought she might be sticking around a while. But she's really conflicted about that, because later she'll be like, "Oh, maybe I should go home now."
Right.
So she thought it was a good idea to come here, but you know, as this day progresses, because this whole thing takes place on one day once she arrived, she starts to change her mind. Right. She doesn't really feel at home here.
Right.
It's not her home anymore.
Right. I mean, you know, it's been, I don't know how long, but you return to a place that you used to live, and it tends to feel alien to you.
Yeah.
You know, because you've grown, you've changed. You're not the same person.
Right. So yeah, the impression I got is she lived here full time as a kid, and then spent time here as a teenager with her dad, but not full time.
So we see Maggie relaxing by a dock, and when she's interrupted by Cal, who's played by Chad Michael Murray, and he offers to show her around, and she adopts this immediate standoffish.
Yeah. Well, they have a really bad first impression of each other, right? So he doesn't know who she is. He thinks she's a camper who is trespassing at the private house now.
Right.
He's like, "Oh, did you get turned around?"
Right.
He's like, "I could show you around."
Right.
And she's like, she assumes he's hitting on her, but I think maybe that's just part of his job, is like to show people around.
Right.
He's trying to get you out of this place that you as a camper is not supposed to be.
Right.
She could have just introduced herself and been like, "Hey, I'm Sully's daughter," and we would have avoided all of this.
Yeah, she makes a lot of assumptions towards things, and
they both do.
Right. And so he ends up taking off. Basically, you know, he's like, "Oh, okay, whatever."
And he's like, "I'm going to go tell Sully you're here."
Right.
Kind of like, "I'm going to pass this off to him because I don't think you're supposed to be here, but I'm not going to deal with you."
Soon an old friend who's out in the water, Sydney, spots her from a boat. She's played by Lindora. It's interesting that she only has one name on her Internet Movie Database. She only has 11 acting credits for her. Nothing that's really familiar to me. They catch up. She was in New York. She came back to help Rob, the Reid Price character.
Yeah, which is her brother.
And initially, I didn't really pick up on what the relationship was here. It's like, wait, is this Reid Price's daughter? Or like, I didn't quite get it at first. And then she's like, Maggie is basically like, "Oh, I was so sorry to hear about his wife dying," which, you know, at this point, if she's her daughter, why wouldn't you just say your mother died or something?
How old do you think Reid Price is, Dave?
I don't know.
We do know.
We do know. You're right. We had in that interview, he's only like a couple of years older than us.
He's 40. He's younger than us.
So, I mean, she could be 20. He could have had her in her 20s.
Listen.
It's possible. All right.
Sydney is Rob's sister.
Right.
And, so she came back after Rob's wife died to help him take care of the diner and take care of his son, Finn.
So she makes a reference to not having heard from Maggie in a while. And she's like, "Oh, you know, being a resident and all that. You know how that goes."
Yeah, so we get the impression at one time they were really good friends. And they have definitely drifted apart.
They walk and talk for a bit and then plan to meet up later at her father's cookout.
Yeah, they're having a big bonfire. And I wasn't sure, is this something they do like weekly or monthly, or is this a start of the season thing?
I don't know, but it sounded from the dialogue like this was a pretty regular thing. I don't know if it's like I don't know how often it happens, but it seems to happen often.
It was a big to-do.
Mm-hmm. So she ends up meeting Roy, who is disoriented, calling for his wife. And this guy is played by Richard Donat, who happens to be the brother of prolific character actor Peter Donat, who died in 2018. Peter played Mulder's father on The X-Files.
Okay.
So there's a connection there.
Yeah, and Richard, the only thing I noted for him is that he was in the show Haven.
Okay.
He had some appearances in that. And yeah, so Roy Gunderson, we'll learn a little bit more about him. He is an elderly neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a little confused. Does he live on the campground?
Or nearby.
I got some confusion throughout this episode when they're comparing Sullivan's Crossing to the town, which I already forgot the name of the town. Timberlake.
Timberlake, yes.
So, like, I had the impression that the campground is in Timberlake, but then later we get like, oh no, the granddaughter lives in Timberlake, but he still lives here. So does he live, like, is he a permanent resident of the campground? I was a little confused about that.
Yeah, so Cal ends up intervening, and Maggie is extremely rude to him. Like, does she know for a fact that this isn't his father or something?
Right. Her doctor kicked in, right? And she's like, oh, he's disoriented. I got to get him to the hospital. He needs treatment.
Again, she's making a lot of assumptions here.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you know this person? Well, why wouldn't you ask that question in the first place?
Right. Why wouldn't they know him? He's here at the middle of the campground next to everybody. Mm-hmm. Like, my first thought would be, oh, are you camping here?
Right.
Like, let me get somebody who knows something to help you.
Right. But,
where is your missing wife? Let's look for her.
So she's extremely dismissive of Cal, saying, hey, I got this. I'm a doctor.
Yeah,
blah,
this is
blah,
where
blah.
she tells him that she's a doctor. And she, of course, has this kind of like, I don't need your help attitude. And then Sully comes as well, and Edna, and they kind of assure Maggie that Roy's okay. He lives right down the street. He's just gotten a little confused ever since his wife died, which is sad. And he lives just down the road, is what they said. And again, is that in the camp or just past the camp?
Yeah, we're not really clear, but I know from reading the episode's descriptions that he's going to be an ongoing character. Yeah. So we're going to get more information on this for sure.
So Sully and Cal leave to help him get home.
Mm-hmm. And she keeps insisting that he needs to be assessed, so on and so forth. She ends up getting a call from Andrew. Apparently, she left without telling him.
Yeah, she didn't even tell her boyfriend that she's taking a trip to another country. I'm
getting the impression that she's kind of a terrible person. I don't know. Hollis took the blame for whatever was going on.
Yeah, this is where we learn, like, we're following up on that whole you were arrested thing.
Right.
A little bit.
But it still ruined her reputation. No idea why. We don't know.
Yeah, so she was arrested, cleared of all charges, but her reputation is ruined. Remember, everybody loved her, and now not so much.
Right.
We also learned that the hospital revoked Andrew's offer. Remember, he had an offer to work at the hospital, and they revoked that as well, just by association.
That seems extreme.
Yeah, so because you're
what the heck happened here?
Because you're dating somebody who was exonerated of all charges.
Right.
You now don't want him to work here?
Right, I don't get it.
It's all very strange. And she doesn't think any of this is a big deal because, they're always been in a long-distance relationship, but he says a 10-hour long-distance relationship is not the same as 2.
Right. And the hospital also won't reinstate Maggie's privileges as well. Frank ends up asking Maggie... Oh, yeah, okay, so we cut to a scene where Frank ends up asking Maggie why she came back, not believing her stated reasons. She says it was to focus on her career, that in the process of focusing on her career, she lost herself. And, Frank ends up saying, basically sometimes it's good to sit still and take stock of things, basically is what he's saying.
And this is also where we get, the first indication she admits to him that she thinks maybe she made a mistake in coming here. Mm-hmm. So things aren't great at home, but it doesn't feel like it's going to be great here either. Mm-hmm. She doesn't know what to do with herself. She's very confused.
Sully ends up returning, having dropped Roy off. He's being watched by his granddaughter.
Yeah, this is where we get mention of the granddaughter's been helping look after Roy. She'll come back up later. But Sully and Maggie have kind of a conflicted conversation here, right? Basically, he's saying, you don't fit in here.
Right.
This isn't the big city. We don't do things the way you're used to here.
Well, she keeps insisting that he be assessed. How do you know that they don't already know the problem?
Right.
Like, maybe that she hasn't been diagnosed. Right. Like, she just... Yeah, she, like I said, she keeps making assumptions here. Edna and Maggie end up sharing a scene, and
yeah, she's trying to feed Maggie something she cooked. She had sent Frank off to go help Sully set up for the whole bonfire thing. And we have this little heart-to-heart between Maggie and Edna. We learn once upon a time they were super close. She looked at she looked at Edna as a second mother to her growing up. And we also learned that Edna's really hurt that she hasn't heard from Maggie in a really long time. So everyone's just kind of hurt that she hasn't kept in touch.
Right, basically. Frank and Sully end up talking.
Yeah. Oh, because Maggie said something kind of mean to her, about not having called her.
What did she say exactly?
Well, it was just in that conversation, and she was like, "Yeah, you haven't called me at all."
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And that just kind of made Maggie flee. She went to the bathroom, which so she's in the bathroom and she's about to hear the entire conversation that they're having about her because the men don't know that she's there.
Right. Hey, if Edna was still around, right? So she could have clued them in.
But she didn't.
Right. So Frank is convinced that Maggie needs Sully. And Sully says that he hasn't been a father to her in a long, long time.
Yeah.
And basically, Frank is basically trying to convince him to, step aside from the cookout so that he can focus on his daughter. And Sully does not want to do that.
Yeah, he's being kind of dismissive of her. He says, who even knows if she's going to stick around after what happened last time. So we're getting the hint here that it's been a long time since they've been together and something bad happened. And we get a mention of when she was 15. So was that the last time she saw these people?
I guess
Is that the last time that she saw Sydney and Rob? And how old is she supposed to be right now?
That's the other confusing thing is I'm not really clear on her age. I'm assuming that he's maybe 50, maybe 60 at most. How old is she?
I don't know how old she's supposed to be. I did not look up the actress's age.
Right.
Like you said, Cal is our age, that actor. So
it's a romantic interest.
Has it been a very long time?
Right, yeah. Maggie ends up exiting the bathroom, and of course she overheard the entire conversation, and she looks mildly upset.
Yeah, because her father's words were a little less than loving.
Right. We have the cookout. Sully is handing out spinner things to the kids.
Yeah, little pinwheels to all the kids.
Maggie comes across Rob. Hey, 30 minutes into the episode, we finally have a Reid Price scene.
Reid Price, and he says hello. Rob and Sydney are setting up the stage. We had learned earlier that Rob is playing tonight. The guitar, I think he plays.
Yeah.
And
it's funny because I think Reid Price is a musician.
Yeah,
you get that.
He's Reid is a hobby musician. I think he's done some, and I might be speaking out of turn, I'm not entirely sure, but I think he's done behind the scenes stuff with composition and stuff. But his brother is the musician in the family. Yeah, his brother is a performing musician.
We meet Rob's son, Finn, who's in and out of the scene in a blink.
Yeah, he's very excited about a double cheeseburger and s'mores, and he's got to go.
Well, I'm so excited about that too. I want both of those.
He was there
things.
just long enough for us to see him and know nothing about him.
Basically that he exists.
Yeah.
Maggie meets some other people. Sully is royalty to these people. They were unaware he had a daughter. Yeah, at least one of the women was.
The people we meet are, and because again they're going to come back, Connie Boyle. Maggie meets Connie Boyle, played by Lauren Hammersley, who's also in Virgin River.
Okay.
But playing a different character. And Connie works for the fire department, and she runs the local search and rescue. I get foreshadowing we're going to end up with some emergency services needed at some point in this series.
Yeah, it's a little bit of foreshadowing there, I think.
Yeah, so she heads up the search and rescue. We meet Connie's son, Jackson Canaday, and Jackson's played by T. Thomason. He is a climbing expert, which I think that's foreshadowing because they're telling us an awful lot about these people. He invites Maggie to go climbing sometime. She's like, sure, that sounds like a great idea.
Right.
Feels a little weird that she doesn't think this kid's hitting on her.
Right.
When she was so defensive when Cal started talking to her.
Maybe it's because he's so much younger looking.
Yeah, but
I don't know.
It was kind of weird. The whole thing felt kind of weird. I'll take you climbing. And she's like, yay, let's do it.
This whole scene was kind of weird, but...
And the other person sitting with them is Rafe. The character is Rafe played by Dakota Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
And Rafe also works at the fire station and helps Connie with the search and rescue. And when Connie finds out that Maggie is a doctor, she encourages her, like, oh, why don't you come volunteer? Have you ever thought about volunteering? We could really use a doctor on the search and rescue team.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the search and rescue team is going to be something to this storyline.
Probably. Maggie is skeptical. She thinks it'd be out of her comfort zone. Sydney and Maggie end up sitting together and drinking. The cookout goes into the night. Frank gives Sully some crap for his cooking abilities. And this is actually my favorite little moment. This little moment where Sully's complaining about Frank giving him crap. I just thought like I said, I think Scott Patterson is probably the most naturalistic performer in this series so far. Other than Reid Price, of course. But, yeah. So Cal ends up going over to talk to Sully, wondering what Maggie's problem is. And he's like, oh, what do you think her problem is?
Yeah, he says she seems awful full of herself.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when he learns that she's Sully's daughter.
And he realized he just put his foot directly in his mouth.
He apologizes, tries taking it back. It's not going great for him.
Right.
Now he's insulted his boss. He's insulted the girl.
Roy's daughter, or granddaughter,
Lola,
comes to thank him for taking Roy home.
And this is Lola, played by Amelia Williamson.
I think she has a little bit of a crush.
Yes, I definitely saw. It looks like she had some interest in Cal.
Mm-hmm.
So she comes up. She thanks Cal. She doesn't thank Sully. They're standing right next. She thanks Cal.
Right.
And she's very smiley with him. And I get the impression that we're going to see some sort of love triangle here.
Oh, joy. That's my favorite plot device ever.
Because we definitely get the impression, and you just said you saw it too, so it wasn't just my imagination.
Nope,
there was
I definitely
sparks
saw it.
there,
Yep,
at least from her.
Mm-hmm.
And we know we're supposed to be, kind of shipping Maggie and Cal. So there's definitely going to be some kind of a love triangle twist here. And from Maggie's perspective, she's surprised to see Lola.
Mm-hmm.
So there's some history there.
Oh.
And she asks Sid about her. She says, does she still live here?
Right.
And this is what I had mentioned earlier. Sidney's like, well, no, she lives in the town that I forgot again. Timberlake.
Yeah,
she lives in
if
Timberlake.
you're relying on my memory, you're screwed.
She lives in Timberlake, but her grandfather still lives here, which is why I was confused. Like, wait, I thought we're in Timberlake.
Right, yeah.
So there's that. And I'm guessing that Lola has something to do with whatever happened when Maggie was 15.
Okay.
That's my guess, is something bad happened that involved Lola. She doesn't like Lola. There's I feel like there's already some tension between them, and just, my guess is it's going to build up into this, like I said, romantic bad triangle thing.
Well, gee, I just can't wait to see that. All right. So Sydney and Maggie continue talking.
Yeah.
Gets a little awkward.
Right. This is when Sydney makes some kind of backhanded comment about how Maggie's rich stepdad paid for her to go to college. She instantly apologizes, realizes she shouldn't have said that. And then Cal comes also. He tries to apologize to Maggie. He's like, I didn't realize Sully was your dad.
And
that doesn't make it better.
Right.
He's like, sorry I was so rude to you. I didn't realize who you were.
But what did he actually do? This is where I'm confused. What has he actually done to her to deserve this much animosity from her? From his...
Well, it was about the way he approached her, at the dock, treating her like a trespasser.
Right.
But, yeah, he didn't know better.
Simple misunderstanding.
Right.
And
she
you
should
can't get
have
over
said,
that.
I belong here.
Right.
This is my dad's house. I'm
Right.
staying here.
Right.
Thanks. Nice to meet you.
Right. Like, I don't get the whole attitude here. I don't get what her problem is.
I mean, they were rude to each other when they met each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it only worsened throughout the day.
Right.
But yeah, he's like, okay, let's start over. We got off on the wrong foot. She doesn't want to hear it. She doesn't want anything to do with him.
I just don't get her problem. I really don't. Other than the fact that he soon will say, hey, you're lucky to be Sully's father, and that obviously triggers a nerve.
Yeah,
right. There's a serious problem there that we don't know about.
There's a very strained relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, right, we don't know the details yet, and I'm sure we'll learn more about what happened between all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, but she's basically like, okay, I'm calling it a night. She leaves. Sydney tries to stop her. No good. She's going home for And she said, oh yeah, I'm going home in the morning. This
Right.
was a mistake. I'm leaving. I'm going back to Boston.
All because Cal, made a mild, maybe a past attempt
I
at
just
her,
think
and
this
then-
whole thing isn't what she was expecting.
Right.
She's like, wait, I don't belong here.
Right.
I don't even know these people. They're not my friends anymore.
Right. Sydney feels like she's running away again, and that last time she didn't write or call or anything, any of them. Maggie promises it'll be different, but Sydney is not convinced, and she leaves upset.
Yeah. So she's back in her room. She gets a phone call from her lawyer.
Mhm.
Okay. And he's calling to tell her that Kevin Markoff, the driver from the crash at the beginning of the episode, remember the one that just had some
Yes.
broken bones? He died a few days ago from an aneurysm.
Mhm.
That's where you
You're
remembered
right,
an
right,
aneurysm.
right.
And not only that, the mother, remember the mother that she promised he'd be okay?
Right.
Is suing Maggie and the hospital for negligence because she must have missed something that he had an aneurysm. And that's all really bad news.
Mhm.
And this lawyer tells her she has to stay where she is and keep a low profile. So much for going home to Boston
Right.
in the morning.
Maggie is sad, and that is where the episode ends. I don't know. I think this is a little bit overblown. Because if you're a hotshot doctor, you're going to be party to some lawsuits. That's just
Right.
the reality of being a doctor.
Right.
So I think her
But
reaction
I
here
think
is...
that's being paired with the whole whatever these charges were,
Mhm.
that even though they were dropped, it's still like, it looked like it was maybe a big media thing.
Gotcha. So
Um,
this just makes that situation worse in your mind.
Right. So the lawyer's like, I just need you to lay low. Like, we need to let it blow over.
Gotcha.
Don't come here because you might make things worse if you come and just start being in the eye of the press right now.
Mhm. Well, I mean... okay.
Which really, it's
Yeah.
just a device to keep her in Sullivan's Crossing.
Right.
Because we wouldn't have much of a show about Sullivan's Crossing if she went home the next day.
Yeah, went back home, and that's it. The series has nothing to do with Sullivan's Crossing. from
Right.
here
Now
on
she
out.
just, is a doctor in Boston. That's not where we're going with this,
Right.
obviously.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's interesting. There's some things here that seem like they might be interesting.
Yeah.
It's really, like I said, it's really hard to judge where the series is going
Right.
and how good it's going to be.
I definitely am going to keep watching it
Mm-hmm.
and, see where it goes. And we will probably cover it in some capacity
Mhm.
going forward. We want to hear from you guys, though.
Right.
Are you watching Sullivan's Crossing?
Right.
Are you
First of
listening to
all-
us? Obviously, if you're here, you're listening to us.
Yes.
Let us know, please. Make a comment.
Mm-hmm.
If you're here still 55 minutes into this, make a comment. Let us know. Do you like Sullivan's Crossing? Have
Mhm.
you watched it already? Do you want us to keep covering it?
Right.
If you want us to cover every episode in detail, if enough people tell us that, we'll try and make it happen.
Absolutely.
Or maybe, we'll just revisit it every few episodes or check back in at some point.
I think we'll definitely do episode 2. After that, as far as I'm concerned, it's up in the air.
Yeah.
Like we're just gonna play it by episode, like and based on like what you just said, the comments.
Right. So
that we
let
get.
us know.
Right.
Please make comments. We are listening to you.
All right. Do we have anything else to say about this episode before moving on?
No, it was fun. It was great to see Reid
Mhm.
Price and
Yes.
Bob Mann.
Yes. It was
And,
fun to watch them
Yeah.
in something different other than From,
Right. And if you haven't watched From, go check that out, please.
and then listen to our podcast.
And then listen
on
to
it.
our podcast because we've covered every episode of season 2 in great detail. We covered season 1 in slightly less detail.
Significantly less detail, but we still covered the episodes.
And we are actually currently doing a rewatch series on season 1.
Yeah.
So we're going through season 1 now
Mm-hmm.
on a rewatch basis.
All right. We would like to hear from you. Stacie can be reached at.
I can be reached on Twitter, X, Instagram, and Threads at TVN Coupon Talk.
And if you like this video and want to support the channel, there are a number of ways to do so. You can join one of my Corn Productions Facebook pages. You can buy something from the Corn Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee, which is a new way to support content creators such as ourselves. You can follow me on Twitter at Corn Productions, which is something I usually mention first, but I skipped that. And of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribing to our channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Corn Productions, signing off.